You're listening to the My Simplified Life podcast, and this is episode number 177. Welcome to the My Simplified Life podcast, a place where you will learn that your past and even your present don't define your future. Regardless of what stage of life you're in, I want you to feel inspired and encouraged to pursue your dreams, simplify your life, and start taking action today. I'm your host, Michelle Glogovac, and I'm excited to share my stories and life lessons with you while taking you on my own journey. This is My Simplified Life. Hey friends, welcome back to another episode. I'm your host, Michelle Glogovac. Today, we have a very special guest, Julie Chavez, who is a school librarian. And I'm totally geeking out over this because libraries are my love. Books, oh my goodness. You know that I'm an avid book reader, and to be able to borrow a book instead of pay for one is so amazing. And the fact that our children get to do this. I was raised in the library. Paradise had a library. It did not burn down. It's still there. And I can remember the smell of it. I remember the catalog system. This is well before we had computers that you could just look up the book. And it wasn't just books that I could get. I got magazines. There were movies. Of course, this was VHS back in the day. But we went to the library weekly. I always had the maximum stack you could have. My children have known and loved the library since they were born. It is just something that has been ingrained in us, and I love it. I love it for them. I love their school library. Their librarian is amazing. And to be able to have access to books, that's just, it's incredible. And so my guest, Julie, you may recognize her because she interviewed me recently on her podcast, Ask a Librarian. It is sunsetting, but Julie is still around, and Julie will also be guest hosting on Moms Don't Have Time to Read. It's a Zibby audio podcast that Zibby created years ago. And so she's still going to be around and interviewing authors and amazing people. So I'm excited to share Julie with you because we have become great friends over the past just few months. We met in Los Angeles, and yet we're practically neighbors living just 30 minutes apart from each other. So Julie's going to share what she does as a librarian, but also what her path and journey as a mom, as a woman, as a new author has also looked like, and how she's been simplifying her life. And we discuss what that means, what that looks like from a perspective of two people who do all the things, and we want to do all the things. And yet there comes a moment where you have to pause and stop doing all the things and instead pivot to doing just the one thing, or the things that really require your attention and that are of the utmost importance to you. Hello, my friend Julie.
Hello, my friend Michelle. How are you?
Oh, yeah, I love talking to you.
I love talking to you too.
Before we get in another 30 minutes, because we've already gone 35 off air, can you introduce yourself to everyone, please?
Of course. I'm Julie Chavez. I'm a wife, a mom of two, a person living in Northern California. I work in an elementary library. I am, for all intents and purposes, an elementary librarian, but sometimes I like to make the distinction because I do not have a master's in library science. So I work in a library. I am an author, and my book through Zibby Books called Everyone But Myself comes out in January of next year. And I'm a writer. I am also a person who likes to do puzzles and read. How's that for an introduction?
I love it. It was kind of like a singles ad, sort of,
yes,
but not.
Totally. I like long walks on the beach and
Pina coladas.
That's right. Tuesday is my favorite day of the week. It's not, but I mean, I do. That's what I need to write it out. It's funny. I was reading something the other day about how women define themselves in terms of their roles and the people around them. Like if you ask a woman how she's typically, especially a mom, going to answer about her kids or how everyone else is doing. But I was always thinking that because even when I introduce myself, like, I'm Julie. So it's a challenging thing to figure out how do we How do we talk about ourselves absent of those roles without being a total weirdo, right? Because I don't want to be like, I'm Julie and I'm really interested in deep conversations and learning about the science of the brain. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I haven't pegged it yet.
This could be a really interesting interview. I had said we can talk about anything and everything. And
You're welcome.
I don't know where we're going now.
Yeah. I'm Julie. I'm an author. I'm a librarian.
Were you always a librarian?
No. I have had many, many odd jobs.
No. I just like that. Nope.
No. I wouldn't have even told you that I wanted to be a librarian. I am not one of those people who I always wished I had a clear career path. That was something, especially in my early 20s, that I wanted to know what I was supposed to do and what I was going to do. So originally when I went to college, I was going to go to medical school. That was my vision, was to be an OBGYN. Didn't work out. But I did take a lot of pre-health classes. And then I thought I'll go to nursing school, but we ended up moving for my husband's job. And so I didn't go to nursing school because we thought we would be transferred before I could finish something. So in that time, I basically just took odd jobs. I did always know I wanted to be at home with my kids for a while too. So I think at a certain point, I didn't pursue something because I felt like that was going to be what I wanted to do most. And some of that is just the rigidity of being young and thinking that I couldn't be a good fill in the blank and a good mom. And so now I know differently. But yeah, I worked at Chipotle. I worked at hotels. I was a pharmacy tech in college. I was a nursing assistant in college. I went to school to become an esthetician, didn't use it for even a day. And yeah, I have a lot of like failed, or not even failed, just like dead end paths. So ended up getting this job though. When we moved here, I was volunteering in the school. Then I became a recess supervisor. And then when the job in the library opened up, it was like, oh, this is perfect for me because I love children's literature. I am a huge fan and I love reading aloud. And so it's been a fun fit. I really do love the job and it feels like I'm where I'm meant to be. So that's always a good feeling.
Every job you mentioned has been something that serves others. Did you notice that?
No, but you're right. Yes. That's a good point. That is interesting. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm definitely, my dad was in hotels for his entire career. And so I grew up definitely like, I'm a person who says my pleasure, not because it's what they say at Chick-fil-A or not to be ironic. I mean, I really do. I have that sort of training, but I love caring for people and I love unlocking them too, if that's something that can happen depending on the context. So I love serving people. It's actually one of the things that was really hard for me with the boys because I love caring for them. And that's how I got myself in a mess because I stopped caring for myself at the expense of caring for my people. But yeah, I'm a person who I like caring for people.
You put their masks on before yourself.
Oh, indeed. I for sure did. And then I flailed around like a fish on the floor of the airplane, which is disgusting.
But you know what? My kid did 28 flights his first year, never got sick. So
28 flights?
Yes.
Well, because the cabin air is actually cleaner than, I'm sure it's cleaner than what I get at school with my little carrier
I'm sure.
monkeys.
The first time he ever got sick was at his first birthday party here at the house.
Oh, of course. That sounds right.
Not the 28 flights, not the hotel room floors that he crawled on. So there you go.
Hey, that's a good lesson. I'm sure he has better immune system for it too.
He does. He'll be sick for like a day and then he passes it on to us and then we're all sick for a week or so.
Oh, that's adorable. Cool. I really appreciate those people. Yeah. I'm so happy for them that they don't have to suffer.
So we are going to have you on again later in the year for your book launch. But let's talk about being an author. You said you were a writer. Were you always a writer? What was that like? How did you come to a book? Is this your debut? Or have you written a book before?
I have not written any books before. So it is fun for me to think about it because my mom will tell you I've always been a writer because I wrote a piece in the 5th grade that she really loved and thought was magical and special. I think she has like 18 copies of it somewhere in a keep box because that's what moms do. But I didn't think of myself. I will say this, something that I've discovered as I've gotten older, I don't always have the most accurate view of myself, which is, I think, very true for a lot of us, because I like to think I'm self-aware and I like to think I know myself, but the things I often have very rigid or very fixed ideas of what makes this person. So an example is like, I never thought of myself as artistic. And my mom was friends with a woman who was a handwriting expert. And the handwriting expert, I had written her a thank you note, and she sent something to my mom that said, Julie is artistic. Does she know this about herself? And she was really an expert. She had worked with this very famous handwriting analyst and had testified in court cases. So she knew a ton about it. And so she said, Julie's artistic. And I thought I had never once considered myself to be artistic before she said that, because to me, an artist was someone who could draw. And that was how I thought of it. And so I'm kind of victim to that thinking. I'm noticing a little bit more where I think, okay, this is the person that does this. I'm not artistic. I'm not this. So I would never have thought of myself as a writer. I loved writing. I started writing a blog, like, with everybody and their mother I was even late to the game too. But I think really where it started, where things started to shift is, and this is a funny story. So my husband had a pen pal in middle school and high school. She lived on the East Coast. He lived in Pueblo, Colorado. So they are pen pals. They ended up seeing each other. Her name's Keely. And Keely had a blog called Lollygag Blog. And her writing made me laugh. And she wrote about her family and her kids. And it was just so funny and delightful. And I loved it. And then we were in Seattle at the time. And I went to a New Year's Day church service at this church we really loved. And he was talking about, let's do what we're meant to do here. So whatever your gifts are, you're meant to share them. So he said, let's not be delayed by endless procrastination and distraction. Let's do what we're here to do. And it was just a beautiful moment where it was basically, stop putting it off. Whatever it is, stop putting it off. There's never going to be a good time. So I basically patterned everything I did off of Keely. And I thought, okay, I'm going to start a blog. And since then, so they were pen pals. Keely and I went on vacation actually together. She and I did. And we met in Arizona. We had never met in person. And we ended up going on vacation together. So she and I are kindred spirits, which is super fun. And also, she's not the only person I've been on a vacation with that I had never met in person before. So that is apparently something I do now. Like, hey, let's just meet. So I think so that was really where it started. So I started the blog it wasn't 2014. I'm lying. It was 2012. I started in 2012. And a lot of friends would give me wonderful responses. And who's reading it? Like 5 friends, Keely, Bless, and my mom and sister. So they're all reading this. But, a few people would say, you are a really good writer. You should write a book. And I used to say, oh my gosh, that would be such a dream for me, but I don't know what I would write about. And I didn't feel like I had this story. So the part is that basically, so I go through this horrible time in 2018, and I had a meeting with my principal afterward. And I said, I think what happened to me is something that happens to a lot of women. I don't think I'm the only one. And she said, oh, well, that's what you should write your book about. And so that was really kind of the genesis of that. So, because she had read some of my blog by that point. So then I sat down in that spring. So that was the spring of 2019, started writing what I thought was a book. It was not a book. It was actually just source material for a book, which is what my very kind coach, Brooke Warner, told me when I reached out to her and said, what do you think of this book? And she said, oh, that's adorable. This isn't a book, but it could be a book. So I think that was the beginning and I wrote a piece that then was published in an anthology. And so that was really the beginning of feeling like, oh, wow, this is something I would like to do and feel like I can. I think I was always really, again, with the title writer, I saw someone that looked a certain way, that had ideas, that had all these thoughts. And So now I understand more the craft behind it, and that it is I don't want to say sliding scale. It's a space that you're in, a space that you belong to. And so now belonging in that space is so exciting. But I think I had talked myself out of it for so long because I'm really worried about wasting people's time. And especially when it comes to a book. So I didn't want to write a book that I didn't feel was worth reading. And because I've read so many beautiful, wonderful, life-changing books, I would think, oh, well, I couldn't write that book, so I shouldn't write any book. And that's ridiculous. But now I understand that that's not how it works. I was very all or nothing about it. So now I can say, yes, I'm a writer, but even that feels ridiculous to me for some reason. Like, I don't know why that is.
No, I get that. When Alicia introduced you and I to each other, and she's like, this is Michelle, another author, I literally elbowed her. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
She's like, hello, you're an author. You have a book deal. And I'm like, well, does that really make me an author?
Isn't that funny? It's so strange where it's just
stupid.
Well, and even let's go back to my horrible introduction of myself. Like, hello, you can say these words about yourself and not sound pretentious and awful. But it's amazing how we sort of put ourselves in these boxes and say, oh, that doesn't apply to me. When if we were saying it about a friend, we would be like, yes, of course it applies to you, dum-dum.
Yes.
Right? It's so logical when we think about it for other people and then for ourselves. It's
like I've been interviewing authors who write fiction, and I'm like, oh, I could never write fiction. Like, I am in awe of you. And the past two are going, well, why couldn't you?
Yeah.
Do you make stories up? You can just put that on paper. You can do whatever you want. I'm going, oh, maybe I should. Everyone's asking, what's your next book? And my kids have said, my son goes, you read a lot of books about other people. Maybe you should write about yourself so others can read about you.
Ooh, that's exciting.
Is it though?
No, memoir's a horrible idea. I don't recommend it. I'm kidding. No, but you know what? That's interesting to hear you say that about writing fiction. Well, I could never do that. And the thing I love about the whole writer space is that people are really open to possibility, and they help you be open to possibility too.
Yes.
Because there are so many spaces in the world where the answer is no. The suggestion of it is mocked and laughed at. Whereas I think creatives have a lot more openness to like no, but you could. And that's been surprising too. I always sort of thought like the author world was sort of this closed system, and it's not. I mean, they're just the most generous, cheer for you, root you on kind of people. So that's nice to hear.
I completely agree. So I now have a Google Doc that's got different ideas. It's NaNoWriMo, NaNoMo.
Oh yeah.
It's
NaNoWriMo, National Novel
And so I signed up
Month.
And I have not met a single goal. It is day 6, and I have not done any writing, but I have a Google Doc with different ideas for what to write on. I'm like, well, that's
Great.
Step 1.
Yes.
So,
well, and that's the thing. Everything has to count in writing, because you can't I'm blessed. There are people out there like Ellen Hildebrand. I was reading about her, like, she does a Peloton ride, and then she writes for a number of hours, and then she does another exercise thing. And then that woman, it sounds like, is just producing. And I love her books. But for many of us, our lives are complex and layered and ever changing. So to say I'm a writer only if I do X or produce X, or, only if I have this system, is just not where you end up. And the more writers you meet, the more you know that, so few are like that. So I count that Google Doc. It counts.
Thank you.
Check.
Thank you.
Goal met.
I asked Mary Otis last week. This was the first time I've ever asked this question. And I don't know why it's the first time I've ever asked. I'm like, you're an idiot for not asking every author this. But what does your writing ritual look like as you wrote your book?
This is going to be so disappointing, because I'm sure Mary's was extremely eloquent, and Mary's the sort of person I picture like lighting a candle and sitting
every
and
once in a
taking
while.
deep
She does
breath.
light a candle. Yes,
I knew it. I
love her. She had on a coat and a collared shirt, and then she took it off when we stopped recording. And I go, "Oh, let's do a selfie." And she put the coat back on. I'm like, "No, Mary, it's just a selfie. It's 24 hours up and it's down."
Wow.
No. like, she is class. That woman and her white coat.
So classy.
Classy.
So classy.
Yes.
It's amazing. I know. I endeavor to be more like that. So my answer is going to be way less inspiring, but maybe helpful to some people. Like most of it, I wrote in the backyard or at our kitchen table or on my couch in between moments. I write in the margins of my life. Yesterday, I wrote the beginnings of a piece that I'm working on for Mother's Day while my son drove his uncle who was visiting and his brother to pick up In-N-Out for us. So I hammered out, as many words as I could in 30 minutes. And that is typically how I write. Like I have to write. It's just, there's no other option. I live in a very small home. I don't have an office. So I'm the traveling person. I often wear these headphones with no sound, just as a signal for people to leave me alone. Yeah.
I love that.
Because I can't always write with music. Sometimes I can and sometimes I can't. Or I can listen. I have this one super random playlist of all these songs that related to the book, but it was almost white noise at a certain point. So I could turn that on. But yeah, I just have to do it where I can. But I was talking to Camille Pagan recently, and she was talking about writing being a mood. So thinking about generating that from inside, as opposed to, I was looking for external circumstances like ritual, which I would love to have a ritual around writing. And I think it's super helpful for people because it's great. But the idea that I can bring that mood up because I need to ask, what am I trying to help the reader feel? And if I can step into that feeling, then it usually flows pretty fast. I'm a pretty fast writer too, so I don't labor over things, but that's why I need heavy editing too. So, I mean, hey.
See, and I was quick too, because it took me about a year. Yeah. And I felt bad for Meg and for Mary when I spoke to them. Like, it took you 6 years. It took you 10 years. I'm like, oh my gosh, how do you sit with a book for that long? Because I want something done. If I'm starting it, I'm like, it's got to be done. Like, do it, done, deadline, get it off my plate because I want to stop looking at it. And that's what I just told my editor. She's like, do you have anything else you want to do? I'm like, no,
and don't you even suggest it. I will not. No, it's true. There is and that's such a tricky part of the process though, is there's so much waiting, there's weighing in, there's writing it, and then there's publishing it. And those are so different that these are things I never would have understood or known, where once you're working with an editor, then they have a say in this and they're looking to make a product. Like it's, in a very good way. I think that makes it stronger because it, especially with a memoir like mine, it can become too precious and you can be way too close to it. And so you need someone to help you untangle some of that. But yes, my book has gone through multiple revisions. So I've written multiple drafts. And had you told me at the beginning that I would have to do that, I probably would have said, I don't think I want to. Like, it's not fun. And but it was a necessary part of this process. But I'm with you totally. I am a get it off the list kind of person and don't think too much about it. So it can be, I remember that very well. Somebody saying, I wrote this book for 10 years. And I was like, well, that's my nightmare. Thank you. Yeah. That sounds awful.
Yeah. My kids would be in college by then. They'd be like, wait, you're still working on it?
Or what about the whole, I have a novel in the drawer that I'm never going to publish. I'm like, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
That could very well happen. So I started working on a fiction book that I've slowly been working on, and I have to think about it. You kind of have to disconnect from I'm producing something and there's a goal in mind with it, right? It seems like at a certain point have to create it for the love of bringing it into being in some way and then hope that the rest works out. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Who knows?
I think with my book, my intention, I was like, it's worthy of being out there. It has to get out there. It was something that I'm like, it cannot just sit here. Like it can't sit and not see the light of day.
Yes.
Because it needs to be read.
So it sounds like for you, I don't think you would even get to a finish line with a project that you didn't think was ready or was worthy of being out there. And some people can do it with that mindset. So it sounds that totally matches your personality too. Like, yeah, I'm doing this and it's worthy and I'm going to sell it.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Before I forget that I want to comment on your handwriting because it is absolutely gorgeous.
Oh,
it is.
Thanks,
I
friend.
got your card and I was like, oh, damn, I wish I could look like that in my writing.
Well, the fun fact is that I have a font of my handwriting. That back in yes, that used to be my sister's favorite party trick was to tell people that my sister has her font. So there was a woman online in the blogging days that I followed who talked about fonts and things. And I like to pretend to be a graphic designer. I think it would be a career that I would love, which is why Canva for me is perfect because I can pretend like I know what I'm doing when I don't know anything. So that's super fun, but I just love design. And so she talked about fonts and I could choose fonts for days. So she had done all these and she said, if you have interesting handwriting, send me a sample and I'll make it into a font. So she would choose from the ones that were sent to her. And she ended up, mine was one of the ones she chose. She did it like every month. And so she made this font and sent it to me so I can actually type in my handwriting, which I never do.
What's your font name?
Well, it's called Dooley Mando, which is hilarious because this is another random thing. Basically, when we came up with a dumb name when we first got our Apple ID in, 2007 or whatever. And we're like, oh, this will be hilarious. We're never using this. And now we're going to use it until the end of time. And, it's like when you had your first Hotmail account, right? Like, yeah. Like coolgirl@hotmail.com or whatever. And you're like, this is awesome. I have nailed it. And then
you applied for a job and they were
exactly
like, no.
Yes. And they're like, oh, that wasn't great. So it doesn't have a good name, all that to say, but maybe I can rename it. I bet I
need to upload it to Canva.
Oh my
So
gosh.
the rest of us can have it.
I mean, who wouldn't want to use my handwriting for their correspondence?
Do it. This is your new goal. All
right.
I'm going to follow up with you. We are going to figure out how to get this done.
Yes. Let's make it viral. But thank you.
Or just send me the file and I'll upload it to my Canva and start using it.
Okay, perfect. I'm
not kidding. It'll be part of my branding guidelines.
I love it. I love writing. Thank you notes and physical notes. Like I love handwriting and artistic writing. So that's been something that I've found that I really enjoyed over the years. And so, yeah, I'm glad that you enjoyed it.
I kept papyrus in business for many, many years.
Actually, the other day I was telling the kids that soon I'll get to see the interior pages for my book. And I said, like, looking at fonts for it. And Nolan from the other room goes, Comic Sans, tell him that. And I was like, no. He was just being a pain. But he actually was the one the other day. I showed him something I was working on and he goes, this kind of looks generic. I think you need some differences here. And I was like, oh, okay.
He's artistic. He got it from his mama.
Apparently. I'll have to tell him that. And if he ever makes money off of it, I'll be sure to let him know that I would like a cut.
Yes. I have an attorney who can help you.
Perfect. Fantastic.
So you do all the things. Let's talk about how you recently simplified your life. Share that with me. Since it is the title, and we veer away from that topic all the time.
I love that you actually stay on the topic because that's sort of perfect. Okay, so this is actually going to dovetail nicely. So I was given the opportunity when I started some of the book publicity efforts to start a podcast, which was Ask a Librarian. So my book, when it was acquired by Zibby Books, they had a vision for it to be the Anxiety Library. That was going to be the title. And it was going to be 26 chapters titled From A to Z. So I tried that, but it just wasn't working. And I think this is the thing too, that I had no idea went on, where it's like, well, let's try this. But this is really common with editors and authors in the publishing process when you're trying to find the right structure for something, especially a story like mine that is, somewhat reflective. And you just want to make sure that it is in the right container for the reader to have the best experience. And
Can I ask a question before it leaves?
Yes.
So the book wasn't written before it was acquired?
It was written.
Okay.
It was fully written. So I went, so I had that 30,000 words. I worked with Brooke Warner, who helped me shape it. She was the one that literally taught me how to write a memoir. I mean, she's even said, this is how you write in scene. I mean, I knew nothing about nothing. So I had some, I think, natural intuition on my writing, but I did not have the craft that I needed. And so she helped me start to build that. So this book was originally titled Little by Little. It was going to be published with a hybrid press out of Berkeley area. And while I was in the midst of those early publicity efforts, I met Zibby. And it was right when she was starting her publishing company, and she ended up acquiring the book. So they acquired Little by Little, had visions of it becoming the Anxiety Library. And then we tried it a multitude of ways, but it just wasn't working. So then this ended up being kind of where we landed with everyone but myself. And I'm so happy that that happened because it taught me a ton. And also, I think it's the book it was meant to be, which is an awesome feeling. So what was I talking about?
Simplifying
Ask a Librarian.
your life.
Thank you. Oh, why would I need to simplify my life? I seem fine. Yeah, it's fine, everyone. Take life advice from me. Yeah. Follow me for more life hacks at messyourselfup.com. But I don't do too much. But I think, so Ask a Librarian, when I came on with Zibby Books, was part of what they had. And it was such a gift to be able to do it. And I had no idea how much I would love it. I mean, I'm a talker. So my husband was like, yeah, shocking that you would like talking to people and recording it. But I got to interview Mac Barnett for my first one, and he was just amazing. I'm such a fan of his children's books. So people that I've loved and followed for so many years, and getting to talk to them was such a thrill. So doing that was great. However, it was really tricky to figure out what I was doing that felt true to this idea, like Ask a Librarian. So for a while, I had book recommendations. For a while, I had the guest come with a question for me, but those questions were starting to repeat themselves. And so then I ended up dropping them because it's really hard to stay, like, you're my simplified life. I think everyone can speak to that. Libraries are a little bit, you know, most people have experience with the library, but it's not necessarily something that is maybe deeply meaningful to them. For some people it is, but it was becoming this piece that I felt like I couldn't quite fit it into the container. And in the meantime, the other thing you should know about me is that I sign up for everything and then realize later that that was a horrible idea because it was way more work than I anticipated. That's like a hobby of mine.
This is why we're friends.
Yes. Oh, sure. I can do that. No problem. And then I'm a disaster. So, you know, with Ask a Librarian, and I know you know this, there's a lot of back work that comes with a podcast. And I was supremely lucky because I had the support of the Zibby audio team. I mean, I already had built-in support. And even for me, it was a lot. So it was kind of becoming a lot. So all that to say, in the spring, Zibby and I talked briefly about it. And so instead of doing Ask a Librarian on its own, I'm going to guest host for Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. And what that will do is it will allow me to still do the part I love, which is talking to people. And hopefully, you know, I see it as my job is to make them look good. So that's my hope, that it can just be to shine a light on what they're doing. And I can do that part and then less of the other part, which is trying to kind of do the machinations. Machinations? How do you say that word? I'm going to have to look that up. Yeah, the marketing.
Let's just simplify that for you. The marketing and promotions.
Thanks. What was I saying about me overcomplicating things? I wonder if I have an example of that.
You're a librarian. You're just looking for a bigger word.
Right. Nerd. So I think that was a big choice. But what was interesting is I said, yes, let's do this. And then I immediately thought, I should be able to do this though. And it's just a matter of me putting in more work or the right work, or maybe I'm not efficient enough. And that is a voice that I have to fact check, which is why I have a therapist. And that's also why I have friends to help keep me grounded in real life. Because the reality is I'm in a season and I love being around my kids and I love being with my husband when he's home. And just those are the things that I need and love in my life. And so I have to realize that sometimes that means letting go of things that I still do enjoy and want to do. But the other piece is that I really do want to write a fictional book this summer. And I cannot do that and manage the podcast because writing requires, and I'm starting to understand this about myself, I do have to have space in my head in order to write. And especially if I'm going to try for fiction. So there has to be some room. And currently there is no room. So it was a good shift, but it's just that, I like to think that I can get on a path and stay on it and have it be, pretty much perfect and upward trajectory the whole way. And I don't know why I would think that because it's never happened in my life, but it doesn't stop me from trying.
I totally get what you're saying because I've been on that path too this year of I did all the things and I did them, but I don't want to do them anymore.
Yes.
I want to do other things. I want to do things not in a selfish way, but something that's good for me. Like I'm done serving others in a sense. I am done being the person to serve all of the children when there are others who can serve the children.
Yes. Well, but that's such a challenging thing for so many of us, I think, is to let go of those, but also to count something for me and space for myself as a valid need that is as necessary as these other things that we have on our plates, right? It's somehow we think it has less weight or less importance when actually it has the same amount, if not more, because it feeds those other roles that we have.
I love that. I think that we need to be like fiction writing besties, not just texty besties.
Okay.
Trademarked.
Level up. Yes. Trademarked. You just asked the attorney.
Let's work on this goal together and hold each other accountable.
I love it. I think that would be great.
I'll go from my Google Doc to an actual something.
Yes. Well, and that's the thing, right? There are so many roadblocks. So it's good to have people to tell you just to keep going, that what you're doing is enough and that you can make it into more and just to keep going. Because I think so many people have the fits and starts of a book or of a project and then they get waylaid. And that happens to all of us, but also being able to come back after an extended absence, all these things. So yeah, I'm here for it. I love
to be open to those.
I love the encouragement. Yes. Absolutely. Very true.
I am open to you and me and us. And this is it. This is a thing.
This is it. We're making it actual. I do.
love it. And we're so close. We can do it in person. We're going to. We're going to go to wineries. Oh, we'll do a winery fiction writing day. You, me, we're like, just keep bringing the tastings. We have our laptops. We're working.
And here's my picture at the end of that day is like Word documents that are just full of SASKF, blah, 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 blah. Like it's like not nonsense words. Nothing even makes sense. And we read it back the next day like, I wonder what I was doing here. But I enjoy
Or they become New York Times best-selling ones and,
Heck yes. I love it. Done. Yeah, I need to do more manifesting like that. Man, yeah. I sure am a negative manifester.
No. We're going to get you on that path, I promise.
Perfect. Okay, we'll put it on our list of things to do.
Okay, where can everybody find you, Julie? And we will have you on again before the book launches.
Can't wait.
We don't do pre-orders yet, right?
No, not yet.
No pre-orders yet.
By then I will have a better way to introduce myself that sounds less dumb. So that's perfect. This is great. Everyone can find me at juliewriteswords.com. And I'm on Instagram at juliewriteswords. I do have a Facebook page, but I visit it probably bi-monthly. So
don't go there, people.
Don't go there. But if you want to contact me too, you can send the contact form on my website. It actually does come to me.
Perfect. Thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you. This was super fun. Thanks for having me.
I can't tell you how excited I am for Julie's book to come out in January. She will be back on the show once I have read her memoir, which I am so anxious and anticipating to read this. I can't wait. I love Julie because she's truly, the word that I don't like, authentic. She is someone who is honest about who she is, about how she feels, about her struggles, her wins. And I appreciate that so much. She's simply a real and genuine human being. And I am so lucky that I get to call her friend, that I get to interview her and read her upcoming book. And we talked, at the end about being open to receiving those messages from others, from friends. And as I get older, it seems to be something that's harder for a lot of us to make new friends. And so when that opportunity arises, when you're introduced to someone that you click with, you need to embrace it. You need to be open to that new friendship, that relationship, because it is truly what is going to make life so much better, so richer, more full. I have Julie now in my life. We're texty besties, a term that we coined when I was on her show. She's written me a thank you letter. She's just a kind and good person. And so when you meet those people, grab them, hold on to them, make them your friends, be their friends, because it's so far and few between that we get those opportunities to find these new wonderful people. And for me, that is Julie. Find your friends, write your book, and be open to new possibilities.